Yeah, yeah.
So I've started streaming the Virtual Cinema Club. Mm. Hello, everyone. Can you hear us? Just testing, I guess, real
Hey,
quick.
hey, hey. Yeah, I think we're off.
Awesome. So
So
Welcome.
I guess welcome to sorry,
Okay.
week 11 of the G5A Virtual Cinema Club, where we watched two films by Taiwanese director Ang Lee, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Eat, Drink, Man, Woman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and obviously, last weekend, if you were here or if you missed it, we did sort of like a intro slash crash course to cinematography, which I think was a lot of fun, but maybe a lot of information. So we might revisit some of those topics, I guess, with more time. Maybe linger on a few things a bit more.
Yeah.
But that's for later. But now we can just dive right in. Um, should we do? Should we talk about Eat, Drink, Man, Woman because it was the first one, or should we talk about Crouching Tiger because it's
I think we
it's
should.
the one most people know?
I think we should start with Eating Man Woman since it's an earlier work of his, and then
Mm-hmm.
kind of maybe transition into Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Sounds good.
I
Sounds
think
good.
that makes sense. Yeah.
For
Um,
sure.
where to start? I mean, that was. I mean, I think we can just start with the opening sequence with the opening
Yeah,
credits. That was just like a great place to start. Kind of dive into the film. Um, just showing
that was
how,
awesome.
yeah, just the father preparing all the food. And just the amount of detail and attention that he was putting into like a Sunday evening dinner. Um,
Yeah,
kind of really sets up the family. Like it sets up at least his side of this, like family's dynamics. Um,
I mean, I think it sort of showcases, which I mean, exactly what you're saying, but like it showcases the preparation and like I guess just the time and
mhm,
energy and care required, right? In
mhm,
cooking in general. Obviously, this is like a more elaborate meal that he's putting together, and it's got like so many different moving parts
yeah,
that I remember like just looking at it, I was wondering like how like is this happening in the order that we're seeing it happening, or is it just like are we seeing just sort of the different bits? Because I feel like just the the sequence of it was like how is he doing all of those things? You know what I mean?
mhm,
Because it's sort
mhm,
of stuff that you if you were actually preparing that meal, I feel like you would do a lot of those things simultaneously, um, or do other things first and then um, like maybe tackle some of the sort of finishing things like closer together. But it was just like a wild um, ride, to be honest. Just how like seeing the different ways in which you can put together this meal.
mhm. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it was just the way you see how all of that kind of comes together is just incredible. And I think it's like also interesting because he cuts that, or they cut that with like then you see like kind of like all the daughters, right, and they're like other like kind of basically all where they work, right? So it's like how this is
Yeah,
their meeting place, and it's this quaint like family dinner between the three of them, and then the father. Um, uh, it's a it's it's very like simple in a way, right? Which is like so beautiful. And then I think I also like loved like every time that anyone needed to say anything, it's like the I have an announcement. I thought that was
yeah,
really cute. I don't know if that's like
yeah,
translated right, but I mean, if that's the way it's translated, I thought that was really funny. It was like kind of
yeah,
quirky, but maybe also just like the way their family kind of works and like how they kind of do that,
yeah. I mean, it sort of just feels like they have all of these things to say, but they just don't say anything until it gets to that point where they just have to like announce stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they just like let it all like build up,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's sort of like it feels like that each time, and it's kind of like yeah. I mean, I think like there's sort of like a nice like a quirkiness to it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also just a bit. It's like I don't know how to what the right word is, but I guess it's kind of touching
Yeah.
also.
No, and I think
You know?
like a good starting, like it's interesting to see the film. And I know we spoke about this like kind of like I guess 2 weeks ago now, like the idea of like the philosophical stakes.
Mm-hmm.
And like in this film, you
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
start to feel those like themes kind of develop about like, kind of like, I guess it's like you're in Taiwan, and I guess it's like about like, kind of this old world, like, about family values and all these things, and then you have like the outside world about like, how like, a country like Taiwan is modernizing and westernizing, and like,
Mm-hmm.
the bit like the possibility of her going to Amsterdam and all these other things. um
Yeah.
and I think it's interesting because you have like the entire spectrum with the four characters that you have, and like the four foreground characters at least. Like you have the older sister who's like refusing to like let herself fall in love because she thinks she needs to take care of her father. You have the father who's like very, it seems at the beginning at least, in this very traditional sense, like this family man who just kind of like believes in like them staying together, and all like just through the virtue of like the way he cooks his dinners, you see that. And then you have like
Mm-hmm.
the middle daughter who's like, at this like this big company, and she's working, and just through like even their clothing choices, right? Like the way she's dressed in like this business
Yeah.
um attire. You kind of see these characters and who they are and the way they carry themselves, and then like you get to the end of the film, and it's like it's coincidental, it's strange, it's interesting, but like how everything kind of flips and all the characters have shifted to the other side, and then the one that remains is the middle child, who is like who we thought
Yeah.
was the most Western, and who we thought was like the coldest of the three sisters and like of the family.
Exactly.
She's the one who stays back in a way and is like still there, and even the father leaves for that matter. And you know
Yeah.
so it's
I think what's interesting there is that she seems the one who's most connected,
mm-hmm,
right, to him, but it's sort of like
unsaid.
not, yeah, it's like this unsaid thing, but she just like shows up, like
Mm-hmm,
even when like there's like these great moments where um I think after their like his sous chef or his like second um in command in the kitchen like passes away,
mm-hmm.
like she's the one sitting with him, right,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
at the funeral,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and the other two daughters are sort of absent.
Yeah.
And I think like there's sort of like there's those moments like peppered throughout the film,
Mm-hmm.
which I think just showcases and sort of like gives you those
Yeah.
like crumbs to say that
Yeah.
okay, this is the dynamic that you should be paying
Mm-hmm.
attention to,
Yeah.
you know.
No, absolutely. I thought that, and then I thought like just the way that led me to a thought, which um no, and I think what's really interesting is like as each character kind of leaves the house, it adds like this layer, it adds this like kind of this, I wouldn't say like an inflection point, but it just adds like another like tier to it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
Where
yeah.
it's like
I
the
think it just like reinforces it also,
hmm and then it just complicates things a little bit. Like, it's like when the father um calls all the daughters home, and then like the other family, they think that he's gonna like propose to the the older woman,
Mrs. Yeah,
yeah,
Mrs. Liang.
yeah, but it's like not what you think at all. And I think that's like so it was like in a way it's almost comedic, but it's also like because that moment just kind of is like this like
It,
boiling point, but then it's also like
yeah,
so entertaining, and it's like, and it's so interesting, and it's so layered, and it's like you also like kind of start to understand why he was drinking so much too, because he's like, I just need to like figure out a way to get through this moment.
exactly. I mean,
um
I feel like um that's that sort of just like surprised me,
mm-hmm,
where I like did not see it coming, but after a point I was just like, okay,
yeah,
all right, like it was like it was like one of those like weird kind of things
it made
where
sense, it didn't feel out of place, like the way he was
yeah,
sending those meals for Shan.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And I thought that was like really cool. So like it started to make sense. Like there was obviously that connection there. You just didn't see it because of that age gap. But like that's not something that's like completely out of the question too.
right, yeah, yeah, yeah. It was
Um
just like very like I guess just out of left field
Mm-hmm.
and like surprising.
Yeah. Um, no, I agree. I thought that was really interesting. I thought also, um, there was like this one moment that was like probably one of my favorites in the entire film, where it's, um, where he like after the two sisters leave, the older one and the younger one, the middle one is left at home, and he goes into her room to like wake her up, and he sees that she's sleeping, and he like I think he just like puts his hand on her shoulder or something for a second, but then he
Yeah,
like stands up and then he just yells at her to wake up again, and I thought that was really funny and just like this great moment, um, you know. And I thought that like the entire
yeah,
film was
exactly.
imbued with like a lot of those. It wasn't just like a one off. It was just like everywhere.
As in a lot of those, as in what do
A,
you
a
mean
lot of these
specifically?
um a lot of these like quieter moments at home that just didn't necessarily like it's not like a plot thing. It's like it shows the dynamic of the relationship of these characters more so, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It,
Like
it
things like
shows
that.
that like specific nature, like what is unique about each one.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Um
Um,
Did you have any other things that you? I think one thing we can talk about now that we've kind of started discussing it is that, and Ang Lee does this quite frequently in general with a lot of his other
mhm,
works too. Um, his that he uses close-ups a lot. He uses a
mhm.
lot of close-ups, and we can start to like maybe start talking about why he does that. And I think he also does a great job of like in his editing also he doesn't necessarily cut out of a scene when you need to. He lets the actor kind of linger for a second and lets the
Mhm,
audience also
mhm.
linger for a second in that moment of that
Oh, interesting.
kind of that afterthought. And it's really well done, I think. I like
Mhm,
I really started recognizing that in Eat Drink Man Woman when you see the
mhm.
shots of the older sister waiting at the bus stop, I guess it is, as the man on the motorcycle, her future husband,
Right, right.
takes off,
Yeah, yeah.
and then it cuts into this extreme close up, which is like this tight, and you're just like observing her face, or even with
Mhm.
the middle sister, it's like with all, it's like everywhere, kind of, it's just like all over the place.
Right.
I don't know if you want to like pull it up, maybe.
Yeah, I was just doing that. Just give me a second.
So,
I'm just gonna make
mhm,
sure.
no worries.
Do you remember? Okay, I'm just trying to find it. Should we do the opening a little
Yeah,
bit
we can talk over the opening
before?
too. Yeah, we can do that too. Yeah, why not?
Um, I'm trying to figure out how to share this.
Mhm.
Whoa. Sorry, just give me one.
No stress, no stress. Um, okay, see what's happening.
I'm just queuing it up.
Hmm.
I will share it. Also, just I like it was kind of is a very visual.
Oh yeah, everything.
Like just the food specifically like
Mhm.
was very.
It almost felt like, I mean, it almost reminded me like the way they showed the food kind of reminded me of like Spirited Away in that opening sequence where you see
Mm-hmm.
all the food in front of her, and it's like just, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
and also like the processes are so intricate.
yeah.
And you
Exactly.
I don't think I ever knew that. Um,
All right, can you see my screen? Sorry.
yes, I can. Oh yeah, even this shot. I mean, these shots of like
Yeah,
just Taipei in general. I think it's Taipei, but
it is. It is.
just really beautiful. I mean, there's something very expressionistic, I guess is the word. I don't know about it.
Yeah, this is wild.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of this plays out in close-ups. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, It's very I mean, you don't have you don't have an idea of the house, you don't have an idea of the space he's in. You're just, in the food and in, with his face. That's about it. And you kind of see all these processes and I mean, it seems like an entire like it's also just like a lot of food on the table for like four people.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean,
But also, I mean, you just like sort of see, I guess, just like this like total control as well, right? Which is
uh-huh.
amazing.
It's very like it's like
Um,
a ritual in a way, I mean,
yeah,
even the way
exactly.
the way he like peels the chili and takes out all the seeds and
Hmm. This like this bit is I love this one.
yeah.
Like it's just incredible.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. It's like there's no like shortcuts. There's everything is being done as though he would at the restaurant.
Exactly.
Um and I think that's like another thing. It kind of shows how even he's so like rooted in tradition or at least so it feels in
Hmm.
the beginning. He won't ever like um compromise even with like yeah like coming to like get a
Yeah,
chicken
exactly.
and do it like cook it fresh I guess.
Yeah, it's very like old school.
Yeah. And
Like it's not like it's like doing all of the like
mhm.
the whole process from like as close to the start as possible to the end.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean this sequence could certainly be like animated too, right? Like it feels
Oh
so
yeah.
unreal in a way, in like the most amazing way, but yeah.
Hmm.
um,
All right, let me know if when.
yeah, we can I guess we can just go to like another sequence.
Yeah.
um you want to just scrub ahead?
Hmm. Also, this sorry, like just this bit where you see the whole like a slightly wider shot of like the kitchen and
Yeah,
everything is great, and like you just see, I mean, like
yeah,
just like this,
yeah.
this bit is like amazing.
All the knives, like he doesn't mess
Yeah,
around. Like he's not goofing around.
exactly.
He means business. Um, yeah. Trying to remember around what mark it might be, like some of the other stuff. But I mean, I think you're starting to see like even this, like even if it's a wide shot, he doesn't he goes further back and still uses longer lenses. Like the space feels a little more compressed. It does
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
feels like closer to him, like
Hmm.
um, and I think that like kind of shows how he uses I mean the space, but also just like in general I think Ong Lee doesn't like
Yeah.
doing necessarily like extremely wide shots, or like he uses it sparingly. Like obviously I wouldn't say doesn't
I
like
mean,
it.
even this section, right? Like with all of the photographs, like we're very close, so
Hmm.
like you can't see anything that's around, and almost like you don't even know where,
Yeah, and he cuts to like the
where.
hand, like he cuts to the hand from one sequence into the next, and then
Hmm.
you're still in a medium, right? You don't know where she
Yeah,
is, like so I think like and he
exactly. So
he
like,
does a whole lot of that kind of stuff.
hmm
um
like just like from and then straight to this thing, which is really nice.
mhm. And I think that's like another interesting thing to like always think about is like just transitions.
Hmm.
Um, so you cut from that to like something like this, and then you're still in a close up, and you're still seeing.
Yeah, I think this
And
is like the widest.
this is the widest we've gotten so far in this film, and I mean that is a story in and of itself, right? Because you're seeing
Exactly,
like the high
and it paints
rises,
a completely different
Taipei.
image
Yeah.
to yeah, and like to what we've been seeing, because what we're seeing is like a very like you know, not old fashioned, but sort of like a
Quaint.
yeah, quaint is the exact. It's sort of like a quaint setting with this sort of the prep of this
Yeah.
meal, and then you sort of like come like to this one,
Yeah.
which is
Also, like their house is like, I mean, from what I can tell, it's like a single story house, so it's grounded. It's not a high rise. And then the apartment that
exactly.
she buys, the apartment she works in, it's like these, taller buildings, like way more
Hmm.
modern. And I think you lose that sense of, the earth, so to speak.
Yeah,
And I think
exactly.
that's kind of like really, I mean, and he does that visually, like, right, by giving you that view outside the window. But he starts
Hmm.
with the, like, he goes from close up to close up and then into a wide shot, so he's not like telling you, oh, start with, like, very traditional filmmaking in a sense, like at least in film school, the way they teach you. I mean, all rules
Hmm.
are meant to be broken, but they kind of say, like, establish the space and then kind of come in
Yeah, yeah,
closer,
yeah.
right? And
But I
so
mean, I guess what you'd be doing here is like establishing the characters, right?
yeah, this
Because you were
works
sort
in
of
the reverse.
already like intrigued. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously with Chu, you're like you. There's so much that you're given. It's like an overload of information. But also, even with the oldest daughter that you see on the bus, like it's enough of like a way in that you're like intrigued,
Yeah,
right? And then obviously with this introduction as well, because I
yeah.
think this is the one that's most in contrast and sort of sets the foundation for the at
Hmm.
least for us to see how their relationship is.
Yeah. No, I think I'll send this in the Telegram group as well, but there's like this thing to think about, which is like the order of the shots in a way. So like if you have
Hmm.
like A, B, and C, that like the implied meaning of A, B, C might be very different from A, C, B or C, A, B or like
Right.
any ordering of those shots, right? It's actually like, I mean, it's like an actual like there's a lot that's been written about this, and I think I'll send a little more information about that in the group. But I think it's like, it also keeps you in the flow of things, right? Going from close up to close up and then stepping back. Um,
Yeah.
I think it so there's a, I mean, there's a lot of ways to like think about editing techniques and like the way you order your
Hmm.
shots and all of that. But I mean, yeah,
Absolutely.
I think if you
All
want to
right.
just
Should
keep, do
we?
you want to just keep playing actually and see what kind of comes up, and we can like maybe,
Yeah.
I think. Oh, and now we're back into food again, and then we got
Hmm.
like, and instead of like doing the wide shot, he kind of move. He'll do the tilts and the pans and all of that to kind of give you
Hmm.
the sense of the space in the single shot. I mean, so far we've been seeing this all as one shot,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now we cut into this two shot. So, I mean, okay, I think that was good over there. So like now we've been like, that was like such a great way, effective way of like introducing you to like your four central characters,
Hmm.
and kind of just like establishing who they are to begin with, like the one who rides the bus, the one who's in the high, like, the high rise, the one who's a bit younger and
Yeah.
working at a Wendy's, and then the father, obviously. So you've kind of like done so much very
Sort of just yeah.
effectively with like, and we've been watching
Hmm.
it without audio too, which is also like another huge
Exactly.
thing. But like think about how much we've like learned about these characters in a matter of like, I guess, what, I don't know, this like
It
the 5 minute mark or six.
six
Yeah,
6 minutes. It's 5 minutes 54 seconds. Yeah.
yeah,
So like very little time out of because I mean it's a 2 hour runtime, right?
yeah,
And
exactly.
um, like just the first 5 minutes, you've sort of done so much of this heavy lifting, and then now you can like get to the real story,
Yeah,
right?
and it's not like the traditional exposition too. It's not like
Exactly.
this person does this. Like it's very just like, you just like you just see it, and it just like kind of like, it sets up everything. And
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, cool. Yeah, do you want to like just scrub forward a little bit? Are we lagging or anything? Are we
I
good?
think the video might be a little bit,
Yeah,
but
it's like the video is choppy, but I don't know if it's going to be perfect. I wish it were, but I think when with streaming, we might run into that
yeah, I think
issue.
it's also just like on my end, it's sort of laggy just because I've got the like video on as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I think we can keep going ahead. I think you might have to go to around like the 25-minute mark because this is the first conversation. Okay, so this is still the first dinner sequence and the emergency
Yeah.
where he has to go
And
help. Okay, here we go. Somewhere around here, probably. Uh, never mind. Maybe. Oh yes. Okay, so we have an extreme close up there, or not relative close up.
right, is it?
Yeah, somewhere around here, I guess.
One sec. Let me go back a bit and then.
Just play it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So I mean, this still isn't like a very, it is a wider shot, but it's not like a traditional wide where you're seeing the entire room. Like you still have the edges of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
frame. Um, and this is cool because she kind of like walks into that shot, like from
Yeah.
a distance and gets closer to like, so goes from into a wide into a medium, and then you cut back into like a close up or a medium close
Mm-hmm.
up. Um, and it's a very like quiet film, right? It's like very um it's about the people, like it's kind of like what they're going through emotionally inside and not
Yeah. Yeah.
necessarily like what's on the surface.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's like, it's very, like, I think quiet's a good word just because it sort of deals with all, it's like internal in that sense, right? Like you're
Mm-hmm.
sort of trying to find out what, like each character's motivations are, like what their objectives, like what they want,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and then also just that sort of drives the film
Yeah.
without really needing any, um, like like I guess just like over the top conflict,
Yeah.
right? Or something that seems a bit more manufactured.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, like he does this again,
So
right? He goes back to the food to like go back to the
yeah,
house and like like go back into that space in a way.
exactly.
Cool. Let's
And this is
fast.
him given the. Should we stop here?
Yeah, I think so. Um, shall we? Yeah. Okay. I guess we can. Yeah. I think we got it. Like got pretty deep into.
Yeah. Hang
Um,
on, I'm just gonna stop presenting.
and maybe we can start talking about. Um. What you call it? Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, for a little
Yeah.
bit. Um.
Okay. Hang on a second.
Are we getting a few comments
Um.
or questions?
Yeah, I'm just having a look. Um. Also, I think we should just check because the stream might be unavailable.
Oh, is
I don't
it?
know if it's unavailable for people. Because maybe we can't show the video.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just having a look. 1 second.
Maybe we can pull up stills from online. Would that be okay?
Yeah, yeah, I think it should be fine.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, so I mean,
We're trying something new to like hopefully try and make it a little bit more, just interesting and
I
have
don't
the
know if they can
clips.
hear.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Okay. Oh, it went off for the second time. Hang on.
Should I check the OBS?
Okay, we're back. We're
Oh,
back. We're
okay.
back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. We were just trying to do something a little new with like just finding new ways to kind of just talk about everything and just show you guys
Yeah.
as well. So,
Yeah, I think just because of, like, I guess copyright issues or whatever, we
no,
can't
of
show
course.
the so we'll figure out. Um for
I'm
the
sure there's
future, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of clips on YouTube, and I'm sure we can just show other YouTube clips, so we might have to do something like that.
Yeah, so we can just figure that out. I just figured this would just be simpler, but I
Yeah, no,
guess
of
not.
course. Of course.
But yeah. So I know. Yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we can just get back.
Okay, so yeah, Crouching
Oh,
Tiger, Hidden Dragon, I guess.
yeah. I mean, no, wait, hang on.
Or,
There's
sorry.
like I guess there's a few more things,
Oh, sorry.
which is just interesting, just because like it's essentially like if we were to oversimplify it, right? It's like a film about like this master chef who's losing his sense of taste, which I think is, I mean, we didn't discuss yet, but like
Oh, right.
that's something that's kind of wild. Um, and it's sort of you sort of see it in the like right from the beginning when um the middle daughter like tells him that, oh, you're like the pork is over smoked, right?
Right.
Um, and then it sort of like builds up when like even when he goes back when he goes to the restaurant and like is putting this thing together, um like they taste the dish and like it's his reaction is not great,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like when his sous chef or like his second is tasting the thing, and then like
Yeah.
what's interesting is that like we go through the film and it's sort of like getting worse and worse, but he still cooks because he like knows all of it from so much experience, and then also just like cooks from feeling, um and then he gets his taste back, right? Like when he has the soup, when she makes that like final meal.
Mm-hmm.
um and then I mean I think what's interesting is that we see the like her character development also in
Mm-hmm.
that like we find out that actually she wanted to like pursue cooking, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
um and then but like she's doing this sort of more like the safer conventional job, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
um and like went to university and studied and stuff, and but really this is what she um finds true joy in or whatever.
No, I think
um
that's also
yeah,
interesting, and maybe like that was like, I mean, maybe not directly, but maybe that's like also like a cause of like some sort of a rift between her and her father, because like her father was like, you're kind of like, the protege of sorts, you take this forward type of thing, and then it doesn't, and she's like, I think she's the only one who ever really comments on the food ever too, specifically.
yeah.
I don't think if
I
I
mean
don't
I think she's the one that's I like I know that the youngest one comments on it, but she's the only one
tells the father.
who does it to him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like the others sort of say it, well, like the youngest says it when he like goes off, or
Mm-hmm.
like when he's getting something else and she's like, oh, he forgot to add this
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in the dumpling, I think.
The shrimp paste or
And then
something.
and then the oldest is just, I think she just wants to like protect this sort of like idea that she's fixed
Yeah.
in her mind,
Mm-hmm.
and so she's like doing whatever she can to um like make sure that sort of image isn't destroyed,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know
No, exactly.
um
Um,
and then I'm wondering if there's any, and then I guess that there's her story as well, right? Which is where she's heartbroken by this guy in college, and then her the middle daughter ends up working with him,
yeah, but that's
right?
all a
And then,
lie.
right, like
Yeah.
she doesn't, so she's never, like, she never went out with that guy.
Yeah. No.
Is that right? Which is just like a sort of like a crazy, like that's what I'm saying. It's sort of like, is it, that's like the first, I think, slightly like crazy like
Mm-hmm.
twist that we learn about, and then it's obviously with the father, and then who he's I guess remarrying,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No.
you know,
Exactly.
um, which is just like interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree. Um, I don't know. Do we have any questions or comments from anyone about anything?
We can just hang out for a bit.
Yeah, cool.
Take some questions.
Um, yeah, I'm really excited. Like, I'm really glad we're starting to do those break weeks. I think
Yeah,
because um, I think it is um, giving us the chance to like expand our vocabulary to talk about the movies we talk about afterwards.
exactly. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think that that'll like help so much, and then we'll actually be able to um like break up the different elements, right, in everything that we're watching, and then sort of um see how the story, like the plot, is driving some decisions, and how the like technical choices are sort of like reinforce, like basically how they're sort of feeding into one another,
yeah, the
right?
marriage of
And
the
then
two.
yeah, and then how like in the films that like really get to you or like work really well are ones where it's sort of like this ideal union, right, where they come together and then find that like balance
Hmm.
um and thread.
Yeah, and I mean,
I guess
and that's the interesting thing about like all of this, right? Like cinematography and just like all of the creative parts that go into a film. It's also like someone taking this story and interpreting it using these tools. So like no two cinematographers are going to shoot the same film the same way, but I think each
exactly.
of them is going to bring some sensibility to the project, and I think that's what's really interesting, because like even like where I stand to shoot, like even if we're required to shoot the same close up, the the distance and the lens choice and like the combination of those elements to make that close up are all going to vary, even if it's the exact
Exactly.
same frame size. Because like maybe like one cinematographer is like, I'm going to use a wider lens and get closer. Another cinematographer might say, I'm going to use a longer lens and get further away. I want to feel distant from the camera. All like
Exactly.
all value all valid choices, but I think it's just like I think that's where it's like you start to like leave a little bit of like the like your thumbprint on it, I guess, so to speak.
Hmm.
And that goes across the board, right? Like even with the sound design and like other like the musical choices and the production design choices and all of that, it all stems from like
Yeah,
your interpretation of a script or of a story.
exactly.
So yeah,
um cool. I think we can move on to Crouching Tiger.
cool. um yeah, just it's very different, obviously, from a movie like Eat,
Yeah.
Drink, Man, Woman, and it's like it's quite. I mean, if you actually really start to think about it, and like he's done this film, and then he's done movies like Brokeback Mountain, and then like
Hmm.
Life of Pi, um,
Yeah.
and you just see this
Look.
huge range.
Hmm. I mean, I think Life of Pi was also visually like stunning.
No, yeah,
um
absolutely, yeah. I mean, all of his films, I think, like even the simpler dramas, like even if you look at a film like Lust, Caution, right? I think
hmm
his films have a really strong visual sense. That's for sure.
right.
Just some of them have it in the more like it just has that scope, I guess, to be. It feels bigger, and the other ones like Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, it feels a little bit smaller. It's it's like a, I guess like a family unit, so it's like it has a
Yeah,
smaller
like you
set of
feel
characters.
like just like closer into it.
Hmm. Yeah, no, exactly. But I think he kind of achieves that with like almost all the films he does, to an extent. Um,
um yeah, I mean, I guess where do we, I'm just trying to think where we can begin
and I think we can start by
with it.
just talking about kind of like similar to what we saw with Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. It's like your film is centered around these like female characters. I think that might be a good place to start. Um,
Hmm.
and then we can like obviously go into like the visuals and all of that like as we move forward. But I think just
Yeah,
from like
I
a
mean, there's
story,
a
oh, we have a
um
comment.
yeah, there was, but then it was retracted
Oh,
before I finished reading it. So, but that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I think, no, I think that's a great Okay, yeah, it's back. So it's the question is, the feel of both the movies is so different. Is it because of the time when they were made, the target audience and scale was so different? Besides the story, of course.
So Eat Drink Man Woman was like, I want to say
94,
94. Yeah, 94
94 and 2000.
and 2000. So 6 years apart. Um, I mean, I think a lot of it obviously has to just do with the scale, like the budget, the size of the
Mm,
film, the characters. I mean,
yeah.
like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was quite like the in a sense the international film that like really brought. I mean, also I think Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was a Chinese production, whereas Eat Drink Man Woman was a Taiwanese production. So maybe there
Okay.
was, if I'm not mistaken, so I think maybe there was just more
Yeah,
money behind it. But I
that's
know
true.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden
Well,
Dragon just had the international acclaim too, and I
yeah.
and it
Also,
the
I mean, I think
actors.
the actors were a bit more known,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Michelle Yeoh and
Uh, yeah,
um, I'm blanking on the other
Chow
Zhang.
Yun Fat.
Yeah, Chow Yun Fat and Zhang Ziyi, and like I've seen
Yeah,
them in other films since, and they're all big
exactly,
names.
exactly.
Um,
But also, it reminded me. I don't know if you've seen this, but there's like sort of like a kung fu football film called Shaolin Soccer.
oh, I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
It's like outrageous but amazing.
Nice.
Um, but it's kind. I mean, it's kind of like if you ever watched any anime,
Hmm.
um, and like they had these like great um like sport related TV shows, um, which sort of just like were amazing, but also very unrealistic
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
in just like the just how I guess just like they like left physics out the window.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And it was like it was great.
Hmm.
I mean, this just like I'd seen bits and pieces of this. I guess over a long time, but I don't think I ever saw it from start to finish. So I didn't really
Mm.
know like what the story was, like what is
Oh, okay.
happening. But I've seen some of those like fight sequences and just like the way it sort of portrays that. And I think it was like one of the early ones that sort of like introduced that sort of like
Hmm.
martial arts thing. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
I don't know if it was like the early ones, but I think like at least to the
just globally, I
yeah,
mean, like
globally, yes, I
you
think
know,
so for sure. I think it definitely brought an eye to it. I
yeah,
think also like to that point, the question that we had about like similarities to Eat Drink Man Woman, maybe not necessarily like from a story standpoint, but I think you see some of Ang Lee's like sensibility just as a director in this
hmm,
film. Um,
yeah,
I think you see the way he kind of frames things and the way he lets it linger, like a moment linger, and he lets a reaction kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
play out. I think you see a lot of this things we talked about just like a few seconds ago, um, repeated or like consistent with his other work, and I think you see that in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon in some places too. And I agree with you. I think what is so interesting about it is it's a martial arts film, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a martial arts film at all in a way at the same time because you have
yeah,
like obviously drama, but then you have like this romance underthread, and then you have like elements from like I guess like the American version of a western.
yeah,
You have like a western in it, kind of with the sequences in the desert, and you have and the tavern and all this other stuff, and then you have the martial arts element to it. And the martial arts to me, like it almost feels like a dance the way he treats it. Right? It's never about the
yeah,
blood and the
definitely.
violence. It's about like this very like I mean, just the way that they float. It's just so
Hmm.
it feels so light and like it's hard to
Yeah,
explain, but it's like
exactly.
it's like two feathers like just fighting each other or
Hmm.
something. I don't know.
No, and
Um,
then and just like the way like they move, and
hmm.
like in I think in terms of like just their like responding, like especially when he like is there for the first. I think like you see Mubai, right?
Hmm.
Like fighting for the first time when he's really just deflecting, right? Like he's not
Yeah,
really doing
he's just playing
anything, and
defense.
then
Yeah.
yeah, and then that's so like it's so you see the difference in, I think, just the way, because I think it's like a two shot, right?
Yeah.
If that's correct. But like, and then like you see how much effort the thief at the time is like
Mm-hmm.
putting in,
Yeah.
and he's sort of just like
Mm-hmm.
chilling out there, right? He's not really doing anything at all, and then
Yeah.
he's just like using her energy against her,
Yeah.
which is, and then it sort of just like builds on that. And I think, I mean, there's those like the tavern one you mentioned where now she does that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like all of
Yeah.
um, these like
Exactly.
challengers are sort of um,
Even in the
like
like even in that sequence you were saying, the first one, there's
yeah,
those moments where she keeps trying to like jump and run away, and then you see the I forget, I'm blanking on the name now, but the other woman who just like stomps on her foot and pulls her back down, consistently.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Just so
yeah.
like
You're talking about Michelle Yeoh's
Michelle
character,
Yeoh's
right?
character, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yulian, yeah.
Yulian, yeah.
Just so well done. And I think it's just like, I think that's what it almost feels like a fantasy in a way. It's like blending myth and reality, and I think that's what's like
Mm-hmm.
so incredible about it. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it possible for you to see if you can pull up a link on maybe YouTube instead of like streaming it of the sequence in the bamboo? Maybe that's, or the tavern one.
Yeah, we
Both
do.
of them would be great to show and start like talking about. Um, I think like also like the cool thing about the bamboo one is like the way they're dressed. They're just completely in white, I think, pretty much. Um, and they're just like hopping through this sea of green, and you have that blend of, it's like such a graphic image in a way because it's like just all this color, and then you have this one element in white. I think it just kind of has a certain pop to it. Um, that's really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, they're both like in sort of like beige. Oop,
Yeah,
here, there's an
kind of
ad.
neutral tones, I guess.
Yeah. All right.
Is this the bamboo sequence or the tavern?
The bamboo.
Okay, cool.
Um, all right. Can you see the
Yeah,
screen?
yeah.
All right. Cool.
So yeah, I mean, just like incredible how they're just like kind of dancing and
They're just
floating
like
through the.
floating on top.
And I mean, just the way he's able to stand on the bamboo, it kind of goes to show that like lightness in terms of like how
Mm-hmm.
they're able to move through this space, and the shots also kind of like take you through it in a similar way. Um, and like you said, he's so zen about everything. He's like
Exactly.
he'll always he never like ever, it never feels like he goes on the offense. Um, he kind of just
I
takes
think
this very.
even when he's like when he's chasing her, she thinks she's like eluded him, and then he's
Uh-huh.
in front of her,
Yeah.
right? Like I
Yeah.
think multiple times, which is just great.
Even these two shots, this and this one, were so
Yeah.
beautiful as a set, and how he just like. And see, the other thing is like a lot of the fight sequences before this, they don't really use slow motion exclusive like
Mm-hmm.
extensively, at least. It's very like limited, but
Yeah.
here I think this is like the first fight sequence where Ang Lee uses like slow motion a lot more, and you really start to see, and I think that also adds to like the featheriness or like the
Yeah. Yeah.
nature
Yeah.
of this sequence. Um, Whereas like uh
And then I mean, in this bit also, like you see the difference in the two of them, right? Like you see her struggling a bit, like to find that balance.
or I think, yeah, and I think, or she's trying to like shake him off, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And then
he's
he's
just,
just sort of like very still.
yeah, I mean he even has a sword behind his back, right? Like that shows so much.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's also just like the reaction, like his expression on his face, like he's just like, yeah, I got this, like.
Yeah. Exactly.
um and I think like kind of this moment where he throws the sword away too, he's like, yeah, I don't need it then, or you don't need it.
Yeah.
um
And she like jumps.
yeah, I think that's when she kind of realizes. Oh, there, the second video in this clip would be the
This one.
the tavern one.
This one, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Let me. I'll just see if I can find it, and then.
yeah, yeah, and even that one standoff between the two of them, Michelle Yeoh's character and Zhang Zi's character, is also a great one. Where it's just the two of them fighting, and they send the guards away
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
with all the weapons. I mean, it just yeah, and I feel like with so many like action sequences, none of them ever feel tedious too. I think that's like a interesting thing to like talk about, I guess, because like there's so many other action movies where you're like, it just feels like a lot of action and like almost pointless.
Yeah, I know what you mean because I definitely I know there's like it's probably not a good thing to admit, but like if there's like shows or something that I'm watching
Hmm.
that like is a there's has like extended periods of like action, I just like lose interest after a point.
Yeah, you just zone
Um,
out. But I think this one it found such a good balance. Like it's not like, I mean, yeah, it's like you don't feel like you're engaged the whole time. And I think it's not just because it's
exactly.
action, but because there's this like conflict, right? Because like even Zhang Zi's character, she's like trying to figure out, you know, where she stands, whether like because she doesn't really have that much of a connection to her like teacher or her
Mm-hmm.
like she doesn't have like any loyalty to her or any need to have a loyalty to her in a way. So
Yeah.
like for her, there's this built-in kind of conflict from the beginning, of sorts, like a conflict of interest. And so what she ends up doing is like even more like then you like can always like, I guess you always think that she might switch over to the other side, um
Yeah. There's always that sort of like
possibility.
I mean, it feels like oh they've convinced her now, right?
Yeah.
And then I think what ends up happening is that it's sort of like it sort of happens, but
Hmm.
like a few steps or a few scenes too late. You know,
Exactly. Exactly.
I've got that
Oh,
scene up
sick.
if you wanna watch
Awesome.
that.
Let's do that. Yeah. So I think
The tab.
for those who are still watching, I think what we should like look for in this scene is kind of how the camera moves, because it moves a little differently than it has in other scenes. And how he uses the camera to move between the two stories that we're in. We're on
Yeah,
two different floors.
yeah,
So
exactly.
I
So there's
think
a so Kritika's got a question: is where is the camera focus while filming fight scenes? Bodies are moving way too fast. So
um would uh I think remember like with a fight scene, oftentimes these are like with stuntmen and stunt coordinators. So you will like the stunt coordinators actually are really key, and they kind of come in depending on the process. Like it's something like this, the stunt coordinators where they're very very early on, and what they'll
mm-hmm,
do is they'll kind of tell you in this action scene, like for example, if this is the like if for a specific punch. If the camera is at this angle, it will look the most dramatic and it will have the most like
right,
hit or whatever, and they'll work with the cinematographer and like even the director and editor to be like, okay, how do we want to pace this action sequence? Do we want to do a lot of fast cuts, or do we want to kind of let it play out in a shot?
right,
And then you kind
right,
of sit together and plan it all out, and then when you shoot it, you shoot those specific segments. In the Telegram group, I'll send you a link to like James Mangold, the director of Logan. He released on Twitter maybe like 2 weeks ago now, a bunch of videos of, I might have already sent this. I don't even remember. But he sent these videos of the mock-ups that they did inside a warehouse, basically, of some of the action sequences. So when they got to the
oh
set,
wow,
they knew where the camera has to go in relation to the characters, and then you just put Hugh Jackman in, and you put the stuntmen in for the villains or whatever, and you kind of just make it happen. But everything is planned to a T at that, like usually with stunts, like especially with an action movie like this, it's very, very, very planned out. So you kind of know that for this shot we want to see the body, for this moment we want to see the expression, for this moment we want to see this, and then you just go and execute.
yeah, yeah.
I hope that answers the question, kind of.
I think it gives an idea of like
Yeah,
how you sort of set things up. Maybe not specifically like what the camera
yeah,
focuses on, but like how you would um like how you would set up the environment
Right.
to best capture the scene.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna cue it up. I'm just gonna play it
Sounds good.
on that note. I think also the bit with the names
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah, and these are like really quirky characters. There's a little bit of like comedy in there. I love the
Yeah,
moment where she says, "I hate that name," and then they're like, "Why does she hate the name Gao?"
yeah,
And then there's that, like, the punchline, that was her husband's name or whatever.
yeah, exactly,
I love also that, like, you don't even see the punch, you just see the effect of the punch where he falls out of the building.
exactly.
Look at this shot where she's hopping between all of these spaces. But there's like a few shots where the camera goes. See, this is actually a few candid angles, right? Because like the horizon
Hmm.
shifted. Um, so you see all these moments, but I love how like she's like an angsty teen.
Yeah, that bit's great as well.
Yeah,
But she just like like spins up and like.
yeah. Even those shots where you like kind of see the sword come out, it's like these moments for you to breathe as the audience.
Hmm.
Like even that right
So it's
there.
sort of like building that like tension, right? It's just that like
Exactly.
pause before things.
Go
I
again.
guess calm before the storm, sort of
Yeah,
feeling.
exactly. See, like, actually, can you go back about 10 seconds?
Sorry, say that again.
Can you go back about 10 seconds? Or
Yeah,
maybe 20 seconds now?
here.
Yeah, a little bit more actually. Like, see how the camera goes through all those spaces and just fall. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
you see so much and you get into this close up. So you go from like all of those like spaces into a close up. I feel like that was the most blood we saw, like the stuff coming out of his mouth in the entire movie.
yeah. And that was the most. I was like, oh wow, because otherwise it's like
Yeah.
it's very like suggestive of
Hmm.
all of that, which I think is like great.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there was a moment where there's a really good moment where the camera goes from like upstairs to downstairs. I'm trying to remember where it might be. Maybe it was like
I think it's
before the
when she like goes up.
yeah, when she starts to go up like earlier. But yeah. But yeah, I mean,
Is it this? Is it this bit? I think it's
no, I think it was like in an
after this.
early like in the scene preceding this where the guys all enter. Do you know what I mean?
I'm just trying to.
I don't think it's
Oh yeah,
in
maybe
this
so.
clip. That's what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah. This is done.
Yeah. But
Oh,
yeah.
I think it's here. I think this is the one. Yeah.
No, there's another one, Ishan. I think it's like on a
Okay.
crane where it's like it starts out upstairs and then it kind of comes down and into a
Oh, okay, okay.
specific shot. Um, I don't think it's in this clip. It was a bit earlier
It might
on.
not be. Yeah, it might not be.
Yeah, that's fine. But anyhow, I mean, I think we've kind of gone through a lot of that. But I think like the action sequences, I think is like a great thing to talk about because it's like you see all the little kind of nuances to how each one is a bit different, right? This is like the one versus many. Then you have like the few one-on-ones. You have the original, like the opening is like a chase sequence. So you have like different types of action scenes kind of throughout the film.
Yeah,
So each
exactly.
one has like a different purpose, I guess. Um, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's just like it's like a really. I mean, I think like there's a comment from Kritika that I was just reading, but it's basically about the music score
Oh, okay.
and how in the sequence it was a bit lighter than you'd expect. So it adds to that sort of like comic
Mhm.
nature of the
Mhm.
scene,
Yeah.
and I think that definitely is another element that sort of helps reinforce or complements what you're seeing and hear and
Mhm.
like yeah, just what you're seeing on the screen.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and I think like um I think we'll have to like do a deep dive into music at some point, but I think
Yeah.
um like the interesting thing is like yeah, it does that, but then like also like a lot of times like composers will come up with a theme for a specific character that it becomes a
Hmm.
recurring like a theme, and then that might
Yeah.
vary based on like the emotional beat of a story and all
Exactly.
of that. So like there's those elements that are also like very I mean just
I think the
tools that are
last
useful.
the one that I remember hearing that, I guess, most recently was in, or at least where I thought it was like done really well was in Black Panther,
Hmm.
where there are these like bits for when I'm forgetting the name now, but not Black Panther, but the guy who
Okay.
challenges him for the throne,
Yeah,
Michael
yeah,
B.
yeah.
Jordan's character.
Yeah.
So there's like a theme for him,
Mhm.
which sort of works. Like it was like peppered throughout like nicely
Yeah, yeah.
whenever you sort of like meet him or whenever he's on the
Mhm.
screen.
Yeah,
And
no, you're
also
right.
I know Ludwig Göransson
Yeah.
did the score, so
Yeah.
it's a bias.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited to see what
uh,
he did with Tenet too, because he did the score for Tenet.
oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but I think, yeah, I agree. I totally get what you're saying, and I think even I mean, like even like so many places, like I mean, so like even Avatar: The Last Airbender, I just finished watching it like a week like this week,
The
the show,
show.
yeah. But there's the
Oh yeah, I'm on
theme.
season 3.
Nice. But there's the theme, and it's like there's
Yeah.
like a few different themes, right? There's like a few for when he's in this state, there's a few for when like,
Hmm.
different moments like depending on who it
Yeah.
is, and they just keep coming back, and I feel like you might not even notice it, but at a subconscious level it kind of tells you how to feel because you've
Hmm.
heard these
No, for
themes
sure,
over the
for sure.
course of
I mean,
like an entire show.
I think you like rarely notice it,
Yeah.
right? Unless you're like looking for it or like you're watching with that like a bit of that intent. But otherwise, it's
Mhm.
exactly what you said. Like it just sort of gives you that subconscious context, I guess, where
Mhm.
your emotions, like you're basically just you begin to feel a certain way. It's not even that you're like told to feel a certain way. You just like feel that, right? Like if you're invested,
Mhm.
if you're like appropriately invested in the character and the stories, that's just sort of what happens.
Exactly.
Like exactly what you said.
Mhm.
Where it's whether he's meeting a different character or if he's in a specific state, like how to feel based on, and so much of that is because of the score and the
Mhm.
music.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Um cool. Do we have any like more specific talking points about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon or Ang Lee in general? Um,
I'm just trying to think.
there's another
If
movie.
anyone has any questions,
Yeah,
please put them
drop them
down
in.
there. Yeah.
There was another movie that I didn't want to make it a 3 movie week, and the third movie is like a really long movie too. But it's a movie that a lot of you guys should watch if you're interested. I think it's just this. It's incredible. Lust Caution,
Mm,
by Ang Lee. Um, it's a bit on the longer side. So that's kind of, and it's just like a third movie. So didn't throw it in, but
yeah, yeah.
just beautifully told, beautifully performed. And just like an interest, it's just such an interesting premise. Um,
Mm,
so kind of, I'd highly recommend it. Um, I actually kind of want to go back and watch like Life of Pi and some of his newer work. Like,
yeah, yeah. I wasn't like a huge fan of just like the story, I guess, but I really liked just the visual,
yeah, that's what I
um,
remember
like
too.
lang. Yeah.
And I want to see I don't know. I want to see Gemini Man. Just give it a shot. Kind of see what it's about.
Oh, is did he direct that?
Yeah.
That's with Will Smith, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
Hmm.
haven't seen a Will Smith film in a while.
Yeah.
Guess it's time.
Yeah. That and Bad Boys, whatever the third one
Oh
was.
yeah,
I haven't seen that.
I have not seen that.
Yeah.
Um, I know Rohan really wanted to see it like when it came out here,
Yeah.
but I just like never never got around to seeing it.
Yeah.
Um,
Um. Any thoughts?
cool. I guess if
Questions?
If that's all, then we can announce the films for next week.
Week
And
12.
call it a day.
It's 3 months. It's been 3 months since we started quarantine, guys. If we're on week 12,
Oh,
this is
yeah,
our counter
week 12.
for
For how many? Yeah. Oh man,
yeah.
wild. It's wild.
Um,
But yeah, so next week we'll watch and chat about the two films by Edward Yang, Taipei Story and Yi. Is that how you
yeah.
said?
Yeah, I guess.
Yi. Sorry. And I think that one's on YouTube, and then Taipei Story should be available online. But for those
I'll.
who are interested, we'll send that link
Mm-hmm.
on the group.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds good.
But yeah, and then I guess also just we can just like keep the conversation going like we have been over the last week or so, just about the different things. I know you shared that short film by Wes Anderson, which was great.
Yeah, and if anyone
And then
ever
just
has
like
any cinematography questions, I know we kind of went through a lot of information relatively
yeah
quickly, but if you have any follow-up questions or anything, feel free to reach out to me through the group or even separately, anything
yeah
really. But
yeah,
we're here to
and then
try and
maybe we
answer
can like figure
questions.
out, just because I mean I know like I like idea for this was to sort of like engage with people with sort of like, and like create like a small like community that's easily accessible. So feel free to sort of like send those questions, comments, like whatever, and
Yeah.
then we can keep chatting.
Yep.
All right,
Sounds great.
see you all, take care, see you next week.
See you next week.